All right, folks, I want to welcome our guest to the show. It is Eric Palacios. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you. We were talking right before we started this, and I said I saw you on the Untold Radio Network with Alex and Joel and Doug over there, last year. And I was very interested in your documentary and what you guys were talking about. So I definitely want to get into that. But before we get into all of that stuff, start where we start with everybody. Tell us a little bit about what got you interested in the subject of Bigfoot and Sasquatch to begin with.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was never really a Bigfoot or Sasquatch person growing, so to speak. We always did have this legend in the town I live in, which is Round Rock, about this. We have a road called Hairy Man Road. And the legend there goes that it was during the covered wagon times, there was a family passing through the Chisholm Trail, which is a famous cattle trail that runs through the town. And he fell out of the wagon and he was deserted there and he grew up feral out there. And that's the story we all heard growing up as kids. I didn't really think too much of it until I had my own experience in 2011, which really opened my eyes to some stuff that was going on. And I'd been here my whole life and I didn't know that there was such a weird phenomenon taking place here. And like I said, my encounter was in 2011, which oddly enough was the worst drought in Texas history, 2011. You're talking about dried up creeks that have been there for hundreds of years. And the first time they're drying up and they're revealing a lot of cave-ins and caverns that normally are covered up by the creeks and a lot of these green belts. But because of this drought, we were able to access different parts of the creek. And at that point, we would normally go behind my house backed up to the Brushy Creek. And every summer we'd go back to the creek and we'd go fishing out there and swim in the creek and have a good old time. And for whatever reason, in 2011, we were in a different spot than we normally go to. Fishing in there, fishing was great because it was just puddles. It was little trickles going into these puddles and it was like catching fish in a barrel, man. So we caught a bunch of catfish and a bunch of bass and stuff. So it was great. And we were there probably about 4 to 5 hours. Started getting dark. There's about 6 of us out there and we getting ready to go home. We start packing our stuff and start walking up where we came. We hear this massive thing crashing through the brush towards us. It sounded like an elephant coming through the woods. We could feel the steps. It was one at a time. It was definitely on 2 feet. But for whatever reason, we never saw what it was. It had to be within 10 feet of us. So I really can't explain why we couldn't get our eyes on it. It was just charging at us to the point where we panicked. And the guy in front of us, my friend Brady, bent down, picked up a rock and threw it in that direction. And once he did that, it was dead quiet after that. And we walked back up where we came and really didn't talk about it for several years after that until we were all together again. And we talked about the good old days. And then next thing you know, someone says, "Oh man, what was that thing back in whatever? What was that?" And we all started thinking about it. And there's been so much more activity taking place in my area of Central Texas here in the Hill Country, I guess people call it. And it's just something you can't ignore. It's been ongoing. And it seems every year you hear something a little different about it. And I really can't say much about the Bigfoot phenomena without mentioning the area. Like I said, the area is Williamson County here, Central Texas, just north of Austin. And we are part of the Balcones Escarpment, which is basically like a mini Grand Canyon. It's visible from space. You can see it from space. It runs to about San Antonio all the way up near Dallas. And it's full of limestone caves, creek runoff, thick brush in certain areas. And a lot of strange things have happened here. A lot of people have dwelled in this area for a really long time. I'll just give you an example. I believe it was in the 1970s, they found the oldest complete skeleton at the time. It was 13,000 years old. They dubbed it the Neanderthal woman. I was right after the Brushy Creek. And that's just one incident. Another incident is, I believe it was also in the 70s when they were building I-35, the I-35 corridor right along the Brushy Creek. They found a Roman coin at the bottom of a Native American Indian burial mound. And they take it to the professor at the University of Texas. And it was a little bit of a controversy there. One of the professors didn't think it was authentic. And his reasoning was he believed it was a World War II veteran coming home from the war, had some spoils of war, just happened to be walking around the Brushy Creek, dropped his coin and burrowed underneath the ground. And that's how it got to the bottom of an Indian burial mound. Okay. That was his reasoning. The other professor that was on staff believed it was authentic 100%. He actually knew the person who had found the coin. He actually grew up with that person under the same schooling, like arrowhead hunting and stuff like that in the Georgetown area. He just worked for us. So he's, oh, I know that guy. He says he found it. Unfortunately, the guy was dismissive about it, refused to go to the area for 4 years. By that time, it was already developed. The road had come through, and then he goes, I see no evidence of anything being found here. Of course, you don't see it. It was 5 years ago, man. That's just one of the strangest things that happened in 2014. The house I grew up in, about 50 yards away in 2014, they found 3 ancient Native American corpses, bodies. They were through construction. And the weird thing about Texas is we have a strange law that says if a construction company finds bones, they're allowed to hire their own anthropologist. So obviously they're going to hire someone that says, oh, yeah, nothing to see here. Go right ahead. And unfortunately, that's what happened. We have no idea what tribe they were, how old they were. We just know it was 3 different people. I would assume they were part of the Tonkawa tribe, which was a tribe that dwelled in this area. And that tribe was a really strange tribe. They covered themselves in full body tattoos, which you would think more of an islander type thing, not really a Native American style, but they did that. And they also, I believe it was twice a year, they would dress in wolf pelts and celebrate their wolf deity, which was a giant wolf that supposedly roamed the area. And so we really don't know too much about the Tonkawa, but those are the stories that are, you roll that all together, that the Neanderthal woman, the Roman coin, ancient bodies, it's just, aside from Bigfoot, it's a weird place. I'll just say that. A lot of, like I said, a lot of caves, a lot of creeks, a lot of places for things to hide. And when I started doing the digging, I wasn't really intending to make a documentary. I was just gathering things up, maybe to write a book or something like that. But as I started digging, the weirder things got. And I wondered if people had any experiences like mine taking place on the Brushy Creek. And I found multiple people with almost identical experiences, getting chased out of the area by something large. And it dates back to the Hairy Man Road thing. Like I told you, we grew up with that legend. And doing the research for what ended up being the documentary, I found a book called Rich Little Poor Boy. It was written by the local postmaster in the area. In that book, he states the actual reason the Hairy Man Road got its name. And it was in 1966, a group of boys, we have all their names, were out there hanging out, and one of the boys got stranded out there. And he claimed to have been chased out of the area by a wild hairy man. He got to school the next day, and he told a couple of the kids, and it spread like wildfire. They picked it up, and it was just a lore in the town, and eventually it ended up being named Hairy Man Road. A lot of people were against calling it Hairy Man Road. A lot of the local old families that have ranches on that part of the town, like C.D. Folks, you have a school named C.D. Folks. He was the most vocal about not naming it Man Road. He wanted to call it Fern Bluff. And in the book I'm referring to, he says, he's quoted as saying, you're stepping on hollow ground. Don't call it Hairy Man Road. So it's all just really weird when you put all that stuff together in the area. A lot of people think East Texas when they think of Bigfoot in Texas, but the Hill Country has a really long and historic, different anecdotes and stories, and I would even say data, putting something, a Bigfoot phenomena here in the area. But yeah.
It sounds like a lot in that area, man. It sounds like a very cool place that people like me would love to go visit. Let's talk a little bit about the documentary, The Beast of Brushy Creek. You did get into making the documentary, obviously. Talk about that process and what that was like, and what did you start uncovering the more that you went deeper and deeper into making this documentary?
Yeah, again, it wasn't really intended to be a Bigfoot documentary. It was more of a documentary on the area. And really, it was about a 2-year project, started in about 2018 and about 2020. One of the things that's really undeniable about the Brushy Creek is that since 2016, there's been a body that popped up in the Brushy Creek almost every year except 2021, I believe. Even currently, we're still having this issue of bodies popping up in the Brushy Creek. And the first time I heard about it was in 2016. In 2016, Round Rock was actually named one of the top 10 safest cities in America. And that year, in the Brushy Creek, there were 3 bodies I found. 2 of them were 6 days apart. They were all, I'll say 2 of them were in their 40s. They were males. We ended up finding their identity out later, but it's always natural causes, no foul play suspected. But one of them, we have no idea who the person was, male, female, how they died. We have none of it. 2017, for whatever reason, I'm not saying they're tied together, but we had just a huge rise in Bigfoot activity, Bigfoot sightings in the area. People were talking about it on these Facebook groups, on different social media. You hear about it through the great, and someone actually got a video of something walking there along the Brushy Creek, and they said it was very clear. It was posted in one of these people of group. It was a people of Round Rock group. Multiple people saw it. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't see it. But when I started doing the research, people said, talk to this guy. You need to talk to this guy. At least 5 people. I have all those messages. They're all telling me to talk to this person who posted the video. So I reached out to the person. I said, hey, I heard about this video, whatever. And he says, sorry, I can't talk about it. I signed a non-disclosure agreement. And unfortunately, I can't talk about it. I did take a video of something, but I can't really go into detail of that. And they would just, oh yeah, whatever. And you know, really pay much attention to it. But then when you look back at, again, the stuff that was happening in 2007, something really weird happened. I don't know how much detail I should go into that without getting in trouble. But there was a alphabet agency. This is all documented. I have all the documentation to prove this, emails, everything. There was an alphabet agency that actually offered a $500,000 reward for the capture or assisting in finding a Bigfoot in the Brushy Creek area. This is a fact. I have the email. The email is from the alphabet agency director to the chief of police in the area saying, hey, we heard that Bigfoot's in the area. If you need any assistance capturing, locating this, please let us know. We're offering a $500,000 reward. This is all documented. I found that person's name who actually put that out there. And not only was he assigned to this group, but he was the director of this agency in the state of Texas. You can look on his LinkedIn profile. It says it there. In charge of covert secret information in 10 secret covert bases inside of Texas. This is on his thing. This is the same guy who was sending out an email to the chief of police about a $500,000 big. Brian, have you ever heard of an agency like that offering a fake reward?
Never.
And around the time this was happening, like I said, there was that rash of Bigfoot sightings and the guy coming forward saying he had the video. Many people had seen this video, and he's saying that he got paid to give them the video, to not release this video. And multiple people, I have all this documented saying, oh, he got paid off, or oh, something fishy happened with that, because they had seen the video and next thing it was gone. One of the other things is when this was made public, the reward was made public, it was June 21st, 2017. That same day, June 21st, 2017, there is a very detailed report of a sighting off of the Brushy Creek on the BFRO there, and it's the same day it happened. So you're wondering, is this agency monitoring the BFRO, or are they putting fake stuff out? Which one happened first? Did the sighting happen first, or did reward happen first? It's really strange and weird. It's a little too much to be, coincidence there. Not only that, but the next closest sighting that took place in the area, according to the BFRO, was the very next day. So the next day, someone also seen this thing. Yeah, traveling further west. You put that all together, you have people on Facebook groups saying, hey, this guy made a video, we saw it. You have the agency coming in and say, hey, we're offering a $500,000 reward. Now you have the BFRO reports occurring the same day and the next day. To me, that's all a little too strange there. It's a little too much for a coincidence, in my opinion, at least. That's what I'm thinking. But it goes into more research that I did about doing a FOIA request. Now, my background, I do have a background in public information, so I've been somewhat trained in doing FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request. And so I submitted one for this. And I've done it on other Bigfoot topics you can talk about here later. But for whatever reason, that one was exempt. And normally when you get an exemption, it's because it's a danger to national security or something of that nature. So for a Bigfoot thing, normally they should just be like, oh, that never happened or didn't exist or something of that nature, or we don't have any files for that, something like that. And I've got that before. I've got agencies saying we don't have anything on that. But for whatever reason, this one, it was exempt. And I'm wondering what's going on there. Tried getting an interview with the person who actually submitted the reward. And once the documentary came out and stuff like that, he ended up, I'm not saying it's tied together, but he ended up retiring and now he works for the private sector. So I wasn't able to get that interview, but all of that is just really strange and weird. And that is in the documentary there. And again, I wasn't really trying to make a Bigfoot documentary, so to speak. I was just making a documentary on the area, but the more digging I could find, it was just, you couldn't exclude this. I've never heard of an agency offering a reward for Bigfoot. You hear some of the fake stuff, like you'll see, a sheriff put out Bigfoot mating season or something like that, or the bounty that came out of Oklahoma or something like that. You hear about these things. But for a federal agency to put out a reward, that's a little weird to me, man. I'm not really sure about that. I don't have a good explanation for that.
No, I don't. And you're blowing my mind, dude, because in addition to this show, I do another podcast. I do tons of podcasts, but I do another one called That Bigfoot Podcast, and it's more of a conversational based. My co-host and I, we talk about some of these conspiracy theories and other things that are going on. And that's something that's came up over and over again. I know you and I just met. You don't know anything about my history. I was in law enforcement for 16 years. And I always joked about, you would be surprised what the government doesn't know, because I worked for the City of Atlanta Police Department, and we usually didn't know our ass from a hole in the ground 9 times out of 10. So I always joke about how this mass conspiracy theory with Bigfoot and how the government's covering it up is probably not accurate, because the government has better things to do than Bigfoot, right? But the more I talk to people like yourself who have different experiences, the more I have changed my mind about that over the last couple of years. I just interviewed a gentleman, it was probably 2 weeks ago. He does a podcast, he's an author, and he is a Bigfoot researcher. And he showed me a map. He holds it up while I'm talking to him. And it's WJ Sheehan, he holds up this map. It's 3.5 feet by 5 feet. It's a military issued map that he got from a friend of his who retired from the military, who was in the meeting where they handed these things out for these special operators that were about to go out into the field. And it was a dangerous animal map and what to be aware of in the area. Sasquatch, Bigfoot is listed on this map. And it's opened a whole can of worms for my listeners. Everybody's become sleuths, and they're going down the rabbit hole and trying to find the numbers that are on the map that I posted the photos of. There seems to be a there, right? So the more you were talking and I'm taking notes and I'm writing down 3-letter agencies and things, I'm thinking, there's got to be something to that, because again, it's about the totality of the circumstances, right? If you put all of these things together, the more research you did, it started leading down the road. Just the fact my face almost cracked when you said this guy had signed an NDA. I'm thinking, who the hell did you sign an NDA with, dude? Who's going to come take your Bigfoot video and say, you can't talk about this anymore? Here's an NDA. Like, that usually doesn't happen. So you mentioned the FOIA request, which I think is fantastic. I know other people have filed requests in the past to get Bigfoot information from these local government entities and whatnot. What have you ran into with some of the other requests? Have you ever gotten anything back on Bigfoot, or is it always giving you the runaround?
Actually, a 911 phone call that came out on September 10th of last year. Someone in East Texas, Harrison County, called the Harrison County Sheriff's Office, said that they think they have captured Bigfoot on game camera. I have that phone call. I posted it on my channel. Not only that, but we know the phone call was transferred. You're talking about cover-ups, Steph. We know the phone call was transferred from the Sheriff's Office to the Texas Game Warden. That's a fact. Now, is that protocol? Do they always do that for these type of calls? We don't really know, but I not only did I get the phone call, but I have the photo that was from the game camera, and I'm about to release a video on my channel about that, showing the photo. And the guy didn't seem, it's definitely a real call. I have all the call sheets, letters from the Harrison County Sheriffs. I have all that. I somewhere have the envelope where they send me the call and everything like that. So it's 100% real. And some of the other alleged Bigfoot phone calls, we don't really have solid information if it's real or if it's not. A lot of them do seem a little bit dramatic. This one, I believe, is 100% real. And I received from the FOIA request, I received the unredacted report that had his name on there and his phone number, his address. And so I ended up giving him a call. And I was like, hey, man, what's going on here? Can you tell me a little bit about this photo you're taking? And the first thing he said is, how'd you get this number? And I was like, I got it through a FOIA request. I just wanted to talk to you about this photo that you have. And yeah, he said, oh, don't worry about it. It's cool. The photo came from his property, several acre property there he has in Harrison County in a hayfield. It's one of his cousin's game cameras. His cousin has a few set up there. And it's the morning of September 10th when this photo was taken. And he said the reason he called the Harrison County Sheriff's Office, and I'm quoting him saying, He didn't want something this big on his property. He wanted to know what to do with it. And he wanted to know if anyone else had reported it. And that's in the phone call. The first thing he says is, has anyone else reported this? So I've been really lucky with some of the FOIA requests, not so lucky on some other ones, but we talked a little bit about the cover up. And I'm not a big cover up theory person. I'm just saying to what I think is happening in my area. And I do think there's a definite breadcrumb trail here leading to something bigger. One of the FOIA requests that I did that one for East Texas. It was okay, so we were talking about the cover up and stuff. I did a FOIA request for the Florida Fish and Wildlife there. I had heard a sighting just came out of Miami State Park. So I wanted to see if I could find that. And I sent them a thing saying, hey, send me all the skunk ape reports, Bigfoot reports, anything skunk ape related that you guys have. And I got a response saying we have zero information on skunk ape reports. I was like, okay, cool. I switched the name from skunk ape to Bigfoot. We have 15,000 results. This is the Florida Fish and Wildlife. They wanted to charge me about $3,000 to get that information. So I'm slowly working it down. I think we're about at $250 or something like that. But it's going to be interesting to see, why are these agencies talking so much about Bigfoot? Why are there reports, emails, and other things related to Bigfoot in their database? To me, that really makes no sense, unless it's one of these weird tags at the end of their emails or something saying, well, believe in yourself like Bigfoot or something. I've seen a couple of people in the offices send out those type of emails, but who knows? I'm really looking forward to getting that back. And a couple of other FOIA requests, I've actually been able to debunk some stuff, like the 2019 Mammoth Cave, Kentucky shooting. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. That was a big deal that happened in 2019. A man was there in Mammoth Cave and stated that he shot at Bigfoot. The national parks rangers went out there, talked to the guy, and we really didn't get the full story. All we knew is that this guy said he had shot at him. So I did the FOIA request. I looked on the National Parks website. I found the incident summary number. With that incident summary number, I wrote a detailed FOIA request saying what I sent it to them a couple months, about 3 months after, I ended up getting a response pretty much saying that the guy was out there. When the cops approached him, he had lied, saying he didn't have a gun. He was driving on a suspended license, a bunch of really questionable things for this guy to be out there. Again, when the police approached him, not once did he mention Bigfoot. You're thinking, what does this have to do with Bigfoot then? It's really strange. And not only that, but I was able to find the photos of the gun that he was using. We have pictures of the gun he was using, a citation for lying to the police. We have that. You put all that stuff together, I'm thinking, it doesn't really hold too much water there. The guy was a little bit questionable to be out there, never mentioned Bigfoot to the police once, lying about having a gun in his possession, wasn't supposed to have a gun, according to some other people. Really, that is one of the other things I found through FOIA requests. One of the more interesting ones, and I almost forgot about mentioning, was one that I hope we putting out a video pretty soon. But the thing is, there's not really too much information about it, which is interesting itself. So there was in a national park in Colorado, there was a group of campers that had come across a bone pile in the forest there. And shortly after that, they reported seeing a Bigfoot in the area. They called this in. We know that happened because I have the incident report, incident summary number, use that for a FOIA request. And when you get something back from the National Park Service, it's in a certain template. It's their farm, it's all their stuff. It's legitimate. When I got this one back, it was completely blank. And I'm like, why is this blank? This isn't making too much sense. And then I look at the follow-up email, and the follow-up email says, there's no further information because the park ranger assigned to this was medically incapacitated to go out there and check on this. And I'm thinking, that doesn't make a lot of sense. You're a park ranger. You think you'd be physically fit to be out there in the parks. They use medical because it's a HIPAA exemption. That's exempt from a FOIA request. Smart move on their part, but unfortunately, we're never going to know what happened here. Did they go out there and find something they didn't want to disclose? Was the guy too scared to go out there when he heard Bigfoot? Was that what made him medically like, oh no, I'm not going out there? Was that the issue? A lot of questions here. And that's one of the weirder things I found doing these FOIA requests. Apart from Bigfoot, I've done other FOIA requests, cryptid related, that I've got some really interesting information back that hopefully I'll be able to put out here soon. But luckily, it's starting to yield some stuff. And again, this is my background. I'm not really a tracker or hunter, so to speak. I've been dove hunting. It's Texas. Definitely know how to dove hunt, but relying on the stuff that I learned several years back. I don't know if anyone else is doing FOIA requests to the extent, but I'm really trying to find some hard data. Again, these breadcrumb trails that kind of lead back to something bigger. Unfortunately, it takes months to get them back. Should be getting them back soon, so looks like I'm going to be juggling some irons here just to catch up. But yeah, it's some really interesting stuff going on here with these FOIA requests.
I'm interested. I should have asked you this a little earlier. You said back in 2007 when they had a couple of sightings on the BFRO, I think you said June 21st, 2017, is when they made this public about the, geez, I'm having a brain fart. They made public the reward that this had. Was that something that is in the zeitgeist now? Can you go and Google that and find that on Google that they made this public?
This is 100% public. Unfortunately, I believe there's only 2 live links that show the email and the actual photo. They made like a warnings photo and everything like that. There's only about 2 places you can find that. We know 100% this came from the agency to the police chief in the area. That's a fact. It's undeniable. We know that happened. Whether or not that sighting from the BFRO was the genesis of that happening or other way around, we're not really sure. It's just weird that the same time we're having all these sightings and the guy had a video of it that he posted, these guys come into town and next thing people are saying, oh, this guy got paid. He got whatever. You need to talk to him. And I reached out to him and he didn't confirm everything, but he definitely said, yeah, I had a video and I was paid not to show it. So they took it. They had it. And he didn't really elaborate too much on that, but you can definitely go back and see that this happened 100%. And I honestly think they made it public because they were desperate. So many people were seeing this and reporting this in these groups. And they're like, we need to do something about this now. So let's configure this thing to where people will reach out to us, maybe with some information, or we have a way to get in here or something like that. They were just trying to get to the community because they knew the community was talking about it. You put that with the historic encounters of the Herringane Road and stuff. It's really odd. All the sightings that have taken place with people saying the same thing, being chased out of the area. I'm not saying the dead bodies are associated, but you can't ignore that. They're popping up in the Brushy Creek. It's really sad to say, but it is happening. And yeah, it's a long historic, a lot of its history here with the sightings and stuff. And when the agency left, about 6 months later, they found another body there along the Brushy Creek in the same area. We have no idea who this person was, when they died, nothing like that. I'm not saying they're associated, but it's just weird that all this stuff seems to be happening around the same time frame. I don't have an explanation for it. I don't have an explanation for the reward unless they were desperate. I'm thinking they were just desperate. They needed to figure out what was going on here.
Let's talk a little more. Before we move on I want to get to your current projects and talk a little bit about that because your background doesn't say the beast of Brushy Creek. It says the expedition of Brushy Creek. So I want to get into that. But my cop brain, when you were talking about these bodies turning up and they're every so many months or whatnot, you probably got this question before, but I'm thinking, okay, there's probably a serial killer in this area because I do a true crime podcast as well. So between my cop brain and my true crime podcasting brain, I automatically go, okay, that's a person killing people and dumping them. What is this state of these bodies? Are they talking about they're male or female? Are they giving us a cause of death? Give us some details on if they're giving any details on that.
Unfortunately, most of the information we have on the identities of the people that have been identified, all of them are no foul play, no trauma, no foul play suspected. On the ones that were nameless, we have no information on that. We don't know how they died, man, woman, female. I was at a car show a few days after one of these bodies was discovered in the east portion of Williamson County, very rural area next to a creek. I asked one of the police that was there, I was like, hey, what's going on with that body over there? These dude, you're like the 4th person to ask me that today. He's like, let's go over here. Let's talk to my higher up and see what he says. So the guy's a couple of steps ahead of me. I'm not as big as he is. So I don't think the other officers saw me as we're walking up to him. And the guy tells him from far away, hey, what's up with that body over there, man? And then the guy responds as we're getting closer. Oh, you mean that murder? Like, what? He just looked at me like, oh, didn't realize I was there. And he was stuck after that. And I was like, what do you mean murder? And he's like, I can't really talk about it too much because there's another state involved with that. And I was like, another state involved? What's going on here? That doesn't sound right. There's been, I want to say every year except 2021, we've had a body unfortunately show up near the Brushy Creek. I know in 2019, we had an elderly man that went missing. It was August. It was like 105 degrees. There's no reason he should have in that area. Not only that, but he's in an area that has a barbed wire fence. They found this man in the creek. I don't think an elderly man would have been able to scale the barbed wire fence and for whatever reason find himself in that creek. That one didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And another weird thing is that in 2020, there was a girl that actually went missing. All she was carrying was a blue suitcase and an antique Victorian doll. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me going missing along the Brushy Creek with that type of stuff. But luckily, they did find her. There's a little bit of trauma there, apparently. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with Sasquatch or Bigfoot, but apparently that's what I've been told. Apart from Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you do hear a lot of rumors in the documentary, The Beast of Brushy Creek. We're in an area where supposed occult activity taking place, and we talk about that. Could that have something to do with the bodies popping up? Could. You never know. The area where we filmed the documentary is very close to where some of these bodies are popping up. Not only that, but when I started doing the research, I kept hearing this occult thing popping, and that's just really something you can't ignore. Again, I wasn't really trying to focus on one thing or another. I was just giving all the information. That's how I ended up finding this really strange cavern structure in the middle of nowhere that is really unexplainable. And it's towards the end of the documentary. I had a friend reach out to me. He knew I was doing the investigations. He says, hey, my brother just found this place off of the Brushy Creek. He's a construction worker, and they sent me this video, and I couldn't believe it. It's these two construction workers scared to death. They're digging out this cavern structure, and once they get it uncovered, you see a giant steel door and a huge stone face that's about 5 feet long, a stone face. Really odd features, long nose, he has dots on its face, and maybe things that represent hair, I'm not really sure, streaks. Looks really strange and weird. I begged the guy, I'm like, hey, tell me the location. I'd really like to go there and see what we can film there. He said, yeah, okay, I'll give you my brother's info. And the brother did not want to go back to that area. He's no way, I'm not going back, whatever. I'll tell you it's this area. If you want to go, you can go. And it was like 2 weeks after looking in that area, and with some Google Earth help, I was able to find a spot where I think it was. And we were out there for a couple of days looking for it, and we found it. And it was this really unexplainable structure that has a 1,300-pound steel door on it, gigantic stone face, a lot of really weird stuff going on here. Breathing holes. It only locks from the outside. And yeah, I guess it's just another strange thing going on. And I remember I had shown this to Doug Hycheck, and Doug's, oh, that's a Bigfoot jail. That's what that is. He was like adamant. I was like, I don't know, Logan. It's pretty weird, but who knows? I just really have no. The reasoning for that stone face is just so creepy. And they buried this thing. It's so weird. Makes no sense. And I've done some research looking into it. I found the article from the Spelunking group and from the University of Texas, and they talk about multiple caves, about 300 caves in the area. And in this document, they mentioned that there could be up to 3,000 undiscovered caves in Williamson County alone. So it just puts your mind in this weird place, and what's all underneath us, what's going on down there, I don't know. But again, it's part of the Falcones Escarpment, a lot of underground aquifers and caves and strange stuff like that. But yeah, I really don't have an explanation for the bodies. Unfortunately, they are still popping up. I believe the last one was last year. It was a young man in his 30s, I believe, and they found him a little bit further west. And a really odd scenario that I'm not sure if it's Bigfoot related at all, but the guy came from Conroe, Texas, which is east of us towards Houston, was driving out here at 2 o'clock in the morning, said he was going to visit his brother. His car dies on I-35. He calls his dad and tells him, and his dad's staying there, we're coming to pick you up or whatever. And he ends up just walking. I believe it's June around this time, super hot. And he walks to a church in the area, a very fancy church in the area. And they call the cops on him. They tell him he has to leave. It's sad that this happened. The last images we had of this man alive is the body cam of the police saying he needed to leave the area. I was actually contacted by someone who was working this just to see if I can help, because he was missing for a long time. And then unfortunately they found him. A couple of days, I believe it was like 2 days after he had gone missing, his phone had pinged in Conroe, which is really strange. Like, how did it ping in Conroe? And they didn't release all the information, whether he had his phone on him or not. Yeah, really scenario there. And that's unfortunately one of the more than a dozen that are popping up here along the Brushy Creek. And at one point I had a map on my channel showing where these people were, but honestly, it just depressed me too much to look at. This is my hometown and this stuff's happening. We had one that was actually on Friday the 13th pop up right next to the Brushy Creek. We have no idea whether that was a man, woman, how they died. We have none of that information. We just know it was on Friday the 13th. Really odd stuff taking place here, apart from, could be associated or it could be apart from the Bigfoot phenomenon. I'm not really sure.
It definitely sounds like it. Let's talk about what you got going on now. What is Expedition Brushy Creek? Let's talk about that. Let's get into that and what you got going on.
Yeah, no, Expedition Brushy Creek is the newest documentary I have. It's being picked up for distribution, so hopefully it'll be on streaming platforms soon. And this is a follow-up to the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary. This time I actually take you down into the Brushy Creeks. It was around 2020. I mentioned before, 2011 was the worst drought Texas has ever had. And 2022 was the second worst drought we ever had. So the landscape was similar to when I had my encounter in 2011. I was actually lucky enough to be able to access that same spot where I had my encounter. So we go down there. I'm really taking you into the Brushy Creek and speaking with some people that had some really incredible encounters that are just, man, it's eye-opening to hear something like that taking place in the area where I grew up. It's really weird. But yeah, we're in the Brushy Creek in areas that really haven't been accessible since 2011. There's caves in the area, cavern systems. This is around the same time, for whatever reason, I think I know the reason, the Harryman Road had been closed for about 11 months, I want to say. It had been closed for a project that was taking place, and you'd go out there and nothing was happening. You're just like, what's going on? There's supposed to be some project going on. And around this time, it was a message, a Facebook message. Someone had been riding their bike along Harryman Road there, started getting pebbles thrown at them. Coincidentally, about 4 days later, the road was closed. Boom, road's closed. And it stayed closed for about, close to 11 months. And I was able to go out there with a buddy of mine. We're out there, it's midnight. We're walking on the closed Brushy Creek. It had been about 10 months, so it had been unoccupied for a really long time. We're down there walking around, and it is just pitch black out there. You're hearing everything from crickets to frogs. It's really wild. The moon was full, but you're not seeing anything just because the foliage on the Harryman Road, it's a tunnel. It's basically a tunnel. It covers everything. And as we're walking, and I have it on video, we get pebbles thrown at us. I mean, there's no explanation for that, man. These pebbles. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So we have that on camera. We have a woman who was living there off of the Brushy Creek near the Harryman Road, Cedar Park area. And she was charged. I think she might be the only person, apart from one other person that I had talked to, who got their eyes on this thing. And it's a terrifying story, if you want to put it that way. She's getting home late from work and she thinks this is a cow in her yard. It stands up and it's pretty frightening, but no, it's really interesting. Not only that, but I was able to go out with my friend David, who is a local Native American in the area. And like I said, I'm not a tracker, I'm not a hunter, but David definitely is. And so I went out there with him and we were searching in some spots and we found something I think that resembled a footprint. I'm not saying it is or isn't, but it definitely looked like a mud footprint on a stone in this area of the Brushy Creek where we're having all these documented sightings and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to people seeing the hill country, how it looks, because I know you think of Texas, you might think of cactuses and deserts and all that type of stuff. Here in the hill country, caves, caverns, tons of green belts, parks, national or state parks, like the Balcones Escarpment. The Balcones Escarpment is a gigantic state park to the west of us that a lot of these creeks come out of. There's a spring there in the Balcones, and it feeds a lot of these creeks that surround the area. And that's a really strange place. I'd love to be able to film the Balcones, but I think they charge $200 a day for filming out there. It's really crazy. And they don't allow drones. They don't allow you to step off of the track. They don't allow anyone to stay overnight. It's a lot of really strict stuff. And I'm wondering, why is it so strict out there? And I've never heard that type of stuff for any other parks in the area. But for whatever reason, the Balcones is really strict. The Expedition Brushy Creek is the main one that I'm working on right now for my documentary. And I'm also working on a book just to compile all the Bigfoot stuff in the area, and I really want to focus on the reward because that's just, it's undeniable. I don't want to say smoking gun, but man, that's the biggest thing to a smoking gun you can get. It's undeniable. We have all this information. It's public. So I'm working on the book just to compile all that stuff together, the historic encounters, the recent stuff, the agencies getting involved. No, I'm really looking forward to the book, people being able to get their hands on it. Yeah, just taking them inside of the area that I've called home for a really long time.
Sounds great, man. You've mentioned it a couple of times. Do you have a YouTube channel? Where can people find your YouTube stuff if you have a YouTube channel? And where can they watch The Beast of Brushy Creek?
Yeah, you can check out my channel. It's Media Palace on YouTube. And I've done a few videos on there. I've done the Mammoth Cave one that I talked about, the hoax Mammoth Cave. We proved it was a hoax. I released the 911 phone call there. If you want to hear the 911 phone call from last year, I definitely recommend you hear it because that's going to accompany the video that I'm putting out next, which is the actual Bigfoot photo that I received from the Texas game warden. So I'm going to be working on that video. It should be coming out here very soon. If you want to see the documentary, The Beast of Brushy Creek, it's on streaming platforms like Tubi and Amazon Prime. It's also on my YouTube channel. And then I have another documentary, The Legend of Harryman Road, that just recently got picked up for some streaming platforms, not some smaller streaming platforms, but it's also on my YouTube channel. We talk a little bit more about the Harryman Road. I meet a researcher who had been an East Texas researcher, came out here to disprove all the stuff that was taking place. And he ended up changing his mind. He ended up saying, yeah, there's something out here. Not only that, but he took me to a spot right off of the Harryman Road that he had heard of a sighting taking place there, a trackway leading up to a T-post, steel T-post. And the T-post is bent like a banana. Now, I don't know if you've ever put in T-posts for a barbed wire fence. You use the post ponder. Those things are heavy duty. It's not easy to bend one of those things. This thing was bent like a banana. On the other side, there were no tracks. And he, like I said, he came out here to disprove that. He saw that and he stood, what's going on? And then he also said that he found a print not far from the same area. And unfortunately, that ranch that this thing stepped over onto, that ranch has been family owned. I remember I told you about these old timers in the area. That ranch has been owned by that family for generations. I know no one else owning that ranch. When we got hit with the pebbles, we were right up against their gate to let people in and out, right in that area. I would love to be able to go on their property, not only for the Bigfoot stuff, but just for the caves and all the people, the stuff that people have never seen. I was walking there on the Harryman Road. Construction workers are out there working on a neighborhood near the area. I'm asking them, I'm saying, hey, have you guys seen anything weird out here over? And one guy's, no. Yeah, that guy did see like a shadow one time peeking behind a tree or something like that. So I go talk to this guy. He didn't really tell me too much about that, but he told me about at least 3 caves, giant caves in the area. I was able to find one, and that's in the Harryman Road documentary there. And another one where he said that he saw deer coming in or out of this cave. I was like, what? That huge freaking cave, you had deer coming in and out of it. I couldn't find that cave. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. The foliage was just too thick. And the scary thing about doing boots on the ground research there in the Brushy Creek area is every year we have cave-ins taking place. Right after the 2017, a giant cave-in under a neighborhood near the Brushy Creek. Huge cavern was found there. And I believe the last time I heard, it was like to 18 chambers. They found 18 chambers in this cavern right underneath this neighborhood. They closed it up, and I believe they put a water tower over it. There's a video of them on YouTube discovering this cave. It was just this cave-in that happened off the neighborhood. And you can hear the people in the background quoting what the guys coming in and out are saying. They're saying like, oh, there's water down there. There's a breeze, and they might be a lot bigger than they're thinking. I'm really hoping that people are able to check out the documentary and maybe come forward. That one video maybe was saved. Someone saved it. Someone took a screenshot of it, or it's still out there floating around, or someone else might have a video. We have a guy claiming that he has a picture of a Bigfoot on game camera, and he kept that private. The only person he talked to was not on YouTube talking about it or anything like that. Definitely not a Bigfooter, just a normal guy, small business owner in the area. So yeah, I'm going to be putting that out there, and hopefully I'll be able to make it out there this spring, talk to the guy, maybe get some measurements in the area just to see if we can get a size approximation on how big this thing was. A lot of stuff coming out here soon. I really recommend if people are interested in hearing more please subscribe to the channel and check out the documentaries. I'd love it for more people to get their eyes on this.
Absolutely awesome stuff, Eric. I've had a blast talking to you, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Everybody check it out. I will link to that stuff in the show notes. You go over, subscribe to the channel, Media Palace, give him some love, show him some love. Check out the documentaries.
Hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully we can do this again, Will.